Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's hearing. As usual, I'm joined by my fellow panel members, Ms. Thuria Estefan and Mr. Ali Akbar.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Now, as I've said before, I'd be very grateful if those of you who are not active participants in the hearing, which will normally include the witnesses' legal representatives, would kindly keep your cameras and microphones switched off at all times, unless for some reason you think it's necessary to intervene. Before we meet the witness, I'm going to invite Mr. Millett to say a few words. Yes, Mr. Millett.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Today we begin taking the evidence of the Arconic witnesses. Arconic was the manufacturer and the seller of the rain screen panels that were installed as the cladding on Grenfell Tower. The product was Reno Bond ACM 55PE in cassette fix. As the panel knows from my opening statement at the start of this module 2, we had invited certain Arconic witnesses who are located in France and Germany to attend to give oral evidence to the inquiry. Those witnesses are specifically Mr. Claude Schmitz, Managing Director of Arconic Architectural Products in Merxheim, France. Mr. Schmitz has now belatedly agreed unconditionally to give oral evidence on behalf of the company. I will return to him in a moment. Mr. Claude Verlet, Head of the Technical Sales Support Team of Arconic, also based at Merxheim. At the time of his most recent statement of the 11th of September 2019, he was still employed at Arconic. However, we understand he has now moved to another company. His witness statement, the number of which I will read into the record, is MET 3053190. Mr. Peter Froelich, Product Manager for Reno Bond. At the time of his statement, 10th of September 2019, we believe he was employed at Arconic, but we understand that he is no longer employed there. His witness statement is at MET 3053197. Gwenaëlle Derendanger, whose job title was Inside Sales Assistant at Arconic Architectural Products, which is an internal sales support role. We understand that she has moved on from Arconic as well. Her witness statement is at MET 3053191. Mr. Verlet and Mr. Derendanger reside in France. Mr. Froelich resides in Germany. Each of these three witnesses has been given a final chance to decide whether or not to come to give evidence to the inquiry, having been told that Mr. Schmitz has changed his mind and is now willing to do so unconditionally. They still refuse to come to assist you, I regret to say. The basis of their refusal is that they consider that they might expose themselves to prosecution under Article 1 bis of French law number 68678 of the 26th of July 1968, as modified in 1980. That law is otherwise known as the French Blocking Statute, or FBS. Article 1 bis of the FBS provides as follows: subject to international treaties or agreements and applicable laws and regulations, any individual is prohibited from requesting, seeking, or disclosing in writing, orally, or in any other form, documents or information of an economic, commercial, industrial, financial, or technical nature, with a view to establishing evidence in foreign judicial or administrative proceedings or in relation thereto. To be clear, these three witnesses fear prosecution by the French authorities for providing information to the inquiry. That includes oral evidence. The position as at today is, in summary, as follows. Until the summer of 2020, DLA Piper represented Arconic as a company and all of the witnesses as individuals. Through their lawyers, Arconic and the individual witnesses relied on the FBS as a reason not to provide any documents or information to the inquiry. They gave disclosure of the majority of their documents, not pursuant to the inquiry's own powers of compulsion of evidence, but in the end, after service of a European investigation order as part of a criminal procedure operated by the Metropolitan Police, who then disclosed the documents they received to the inquiry in turn. In March 2020, after Module 1 hearings had been suspended and after the Attorney General's undertaking had been secured, Arconic told the inquiry that the FBS prevented Arconic's potential witnesses, all of them, from giving any oral evidence to the inquiry. That included Ms. Deborah French, Vince Meekins, and Peter Froelich, even though they are not resident in France. At that stage, none of the potential witnesses had taken their own independent legal advice about the FBS, independent of Arconic. As a result, the inquiry engaged the FCDO and instigated discussions at the highest level in government between the French and the United Kingdom governments, respectively, in order to see whether an international agreement could be reached, whereby the French authorities could give adequate assurances to Arconic witnesses that they would not be prosecuted under the FBS if they gave oral evidence to the inquiry. Those discussions took a number of months and resulted in a note verbal of the 7th of December 2020, received by the inquiry on the 8th of December 2020. That note verbal said that it was the opinion of the French government that the inquiry does not appear to fall within the scope of Article 1 bis of the FBS, and that consequently, and I quote, "The French authorities do not share the position that the blocking statute constitutes an obstacle to the examination of Arconic's employees before the inquiry." And I close quote. However, the note verbal also said that the FBS did not confer any power on the French administration to remove a prohibition thereunder, and that it was what it called jurisdictions, in other words, courts, that have the authority over the interpretation of the criminal law. The note verbal does not go so far, therefore, as to offer immunity to Arconic's witnesses from prosecution under the FBS, because that is something that the French government says it cannot provide. That means that if Arconic's witnesses gave oral evidence, although they would have the benefit of the protection of the United Kingdom Attorney General's undertaking in respect of any offences committed in the United Kingdom, or capable of being prosecuted, which arises out of the substance of their answers, they would not have the benefit of any protection in respect of the French blocking statute, which may be infringed by the giving of any information, whether or not it incriminates the witness. Since this inquiry is not a court and cannot determine a person's civil or criminal liability, it appears to the inquiry to be very doubtful that the French blocking statute has any application to evidence given to the inquiry. But even if the French blocking statute were to be engaged, then as a matter of English law, the position is that whether these witnesses must give evidence in the face of the French blocking statute is a matter of the panel's discretion. That discretion is a wide one, but the English cases dealing with documentary disclosure in this context say that someone seeking to be excused from their disclosure obligations in civil proceedings, which would be caught by the French blocking statute, must satisfy the court with supporting evidence that there is a real risk of prosecution if they complied. Even assuming that the French blocking statute applied, none of the witnesses has provided such evidence. In fairness to Arconic and the three recalcitrant witnesses, I would point out the following things. First, although Arconic itself originally raised the French blocking statute objection in respect of all of its potential witnesses, in June 2020, it arranged for each of these witnesses, except Mr. Claude Schmitz, to take their own independent legal advice. Claude Schmitz, Arconic's president, remained advised by DLAP, Arconic's solicitors. Ms. Deborah French and Mr. Vince Meekins have chosen, on advice from a large and reputable firm of solicitors, to give evidence. Claude Verlet, Peter Froelich, and Grenfell Tower, based in France and Germany, have refused to do so on French or German legal advice. Arconic would like it known that the decision not to attend is the independent decision of each of these witnesses. The inquiry's position is first that it was never so in respect of Mr. Schmidt, who remained and remains advised and represented by DLAP, Arconic solicitors, as his own RLR. Secondly, although that is so now in respect of the 3 remaining foreign witnesses, it was Arconic that originated the objection based on the French blocking statute on behalf of all such witnesses. Secondly, the legal advisors of each of these 3 witnesses has told the inquiry that they cannot advise their clients, these witnesses, to run the risk of committing a criminal offence under the French blocking statute. The inquiry's position is that that is too simplistic an approach, and it ignores the English court's approach of demanding an objective and realistic assessment of the risk based on evidence. Thirdly, although the French blocking statute excludes any arrangements made by international treaty, there is no international treaty relating to these 3 witnesses, and none is imminent. International treaties take a long time to negotiate, and we cannot sit and wait for these lucubrations to materialize in a binding and legal agreement with the Republic of France. The absence of any substantial risk of prosecution does not make an indefinite delay of that nature fair or proportionate. It would be a significant interruption to the inquiry's work. Summarizing it thus far, therefore, the inquiry's position is that the refusal of these witnesses to come and give evidence is unreasonable. They cannot be compelled because a notice under Section 21 cannot be enforced in France or in Germany. They have nonetheless been sent Section 21 notices all the same. Now, what I have said may or is contested by Arconic. You will hear from Arconic in detail about these matters in their Module 2 closing submissions. Arconic says that it is unfair that it has no opportunity to make its submissions about all this at this stage, but I should just point out that it has not applied to address you now on them, and all I would say at this stage is that I am simply laying out publicly the inquiry's position in response to Arconic's stance and to explain the background to why there are so few Arconic witnesses giving oral evidence to the inquiry. Members of the panel, you may very well decide at the end of the day, having heard from Arconic, that it was fair and reasonable to excuse these witnesses from coming to give evidence. That must remain a matter for you, having heard all the arguments, but the inquiry counsel team's position is that it is not reasonable. As I mentioned before, on the 20th of January 2021, after some weeks of correspondence between DLA Piper and the inquiry, Claude Schmidt agreed to give oral evidence without any of the conditions that he and Arconic had previously sought to impose on his doing so. We have therefore, quite late on, revised the Module 2 timetable to take account of that fact. And one would hope that many of the questions we wish to put to Mr. Verlet and the other non-UK witnesses would be answered by him. However, it may also be necessary to set out the further questions that we would have wished to put to those witnesses in a separate presentation, and we will keep that question under review as the evidence progresses. Mr. Schmidt's command of English is not so strong as to give him the confidence to give his evidence in English, and so we have arranged for him to give his evidence through interpreters and to be shown some of the documents in the French language with English translations and vice versa where we can. We will explain a little more about that process when he comes to give evidence. And so we will now proceed with our questioning of the Arconic witnesses who have agreed to attend, but without all of the people who may be able to answer all of the questions that we have. Mr. Chairman, I would now like please to call Ms. Deborah French.
Thank you very much, Mr. Millett. Well, we can now meet today's witness, Ms. French. Ms. French, I think you're there waiting to be questioned. Can you see me and can you hear me?
Yes, I can, sir.
Good, thank you very much. Now, I understand you would prefer to take the oath rather than to make an affirmation.
Yes, please.
Right. Do you have a New Testament with you or a Bible which contains the New
Yes, I do.
Testament?
Yeah.
Right. Now, on the screen in front of you, you may find the words of the oath. Are they there?
Yes, they are.
Would you take the Bible in your right hand, please, and repeat the words on the screen?
I swear by Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Thank you very much. Now, just a couple of housekeeping matters we have to deal with. First of all, can you confirm that you're alone in the room from which you're giving evidence?
Yes, I can confirm that.
Thank you. Can you also confirm that you have no documents or other materials with you?
No, none at all.
Good, thank you. And finally, can you confirm that your mobile phone is in another room and that you don't have any other electronic device in the room which is capable of receiving messages?
No, I have nothing in the room.
Lovely, thank you very much indeed. Now, you probably know this, but I should tell you that your legal representatives are in the hearing room following the evidence. They can intervene if they consider it necessary to do so, but otherwise I've asked them to keep their microphones and cameras switched off to avoid technical problems.
Okay.
All right? I hope we shan't have any problems with sound or vision. If we do, we'll take a short break while the technical team resolves them. All right. And if you need to attract my attention for any reason, just please indicate in some appropriate way and we'll see what the problem is. You might like to know that we're planning to have a short break roughly halfway through each session. It'll be about 11:15 in the morning session and about 3:15 in the afternoon session. But if at any stage you think you need an additional break, will you just indicate and we'll try and accommodate you. One thing I do need to mention, because we're going to have breaks in your evidence, once you've started giving evidence, it's important that you don't discuss your evidence or anything relating to it with anyone else until you've completely finished. I don't know whether your evidence will go over until tomorrow, but there's obviously an opportunity overnight to talk to people, and please resist it. I'll try to remind you of that whenever we have a break, but if I fail to do so, please bear it in mind nonetheless, all right? Now, before we start, is there any question you have for anything you'd like to bring to my attention?
No, not at the moment. Thank you, sir.
You're ready to go, good. All right, thank you very much. Well, in that case, I'm going to invite Mr. Millett to put some questions to you.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr.
Sir, I do apologise for interrupting. This is Stephen Hockman on behalf of
Yes, Mr.
Arconic.
Hockman.
It's merely a technical point. My transcript is behaving in a slightly curious way. I don't know if this affects anyone else. If it doesn't, then I will immediately go away and try and sort it out. But at the moment, what seems to be happening is that the transcript is scrolling continuously through yesterday's proceedings and not recording what is being said today.
Right, thank you for drawing that to my attention, Mr. Hockman.
I was going to mention, when you got to the end of our introduction, I've had a general message that we've had a number of objections from other RLRs. The transcript is not working for them. So I think we're going to, I'm afraid, and I apologise to the witness as well, we're going to have to take a break while we sort this out, because clearly they need to be able to see the transcript.
Of course, we all need to have the transcript. Well, Miss French, that's very disappointing, isn't it? We have a problem with the technology right at the beginning. I think we will have to take a break. We'll get back to you as soon as we can, and once we've got the problem sorted out.
Okay.
So remember what I've just said to you. You haven't actually started giving your evidence, but once you've taken the oath, you have to regard yourself as being incommunicado for these purposes.
Okay.
All right, we'll get back to you as soon as we can.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I've asked for us all to come back into the hearing room, really just so that I can explain what's been going on. As you will realize by now, we have a serious problem with one aspect of the technology. I should make it clear that it's not a problem with the remote video platform which we are using. The problem resides in the rolling transcript, which for reasons I can't explain, was not going out properly to the various lawyers who have to be involved in the hearing. It's not possible for them to deal with the hearing without the benefit of the rolling transcript. And we've been making efforts, or Opus have on our behalf, to try to restore the connection. Unfortunately, it's been much more difficult to do that than anyone had expected. So I have decided that we need, the sensible course to take is to adjourn the hearing for a bit longer in order to give Opus a real opportunity to identify the fault, correct it, and ensure that when we come back, we are ready to go on without interruption. Now, Ms. French, I hope you've been able to hear everything I've just said. I'm sorry this is very inconvenient for you, and I appreciate that fully, but there's nothing I can do for the time being. I hope that at least if we say now that we will adjourn until 11:30, it will at least give you an opportunity to leave the room, make yourself a cup of coffee or whatever. And I'm hoping that by 11:30, the problem will have been resolved and we can continue then without interruption.
Okay.
There it is. I'm very sorry. I apologize to everyone for this difficulty. We will break now and resume the hearing at 11:30. Thank you very much. Welcome back, everyone. I'm sorry that the adjournment lasted a little longer than I originally said it would, but the problem took a bit longer to resolve. Anyway, I'm told that it has been resolved and that we're ready to continue. So, first of all, Ms. French, can you see me and can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. And I'm sorry that we've kept you hanging on like this. It's disruptive, I understand that, but I'm afraid there was nothing we could do about it. But we are now ready to continue. So, Mr. Millett, when you're ready.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Ms. French, first of all, can I start by thanking you very much for attending this public inquiry to give your evidence. We are very grateful to you for coming. If you have any difficulty understanding any of the questions that I'm going to ask you, then please say, and I can put the question in a different way or repeat it. If you feel you need a break at any point, please let us know, although we will be taking scheduled breaks during the course of the day. I don't quite know whether we're going to run straight to lunchtime. I suspect we might, but we'll certainly be taking a break in the middle of the afternoon. Can I also just say that we would like you very much to keep your voice up so that the transcriber, who is also on this call, can get down your evidence onto the transcript so that everybody can read it. Also, just when you're giving answers yes or no, try to say yes or no and not nod your head or shake your head, as the case may be. Now, Ms. French, you've made 2 witness statements and they will appear on the screen in front of you. Can we go first, please, to MET 3019063? Now, this is your statement dated the 14th of September 2017, and we'll call this your first witness statement. It's 8 pages long and it's unsigned. Can I just get you to confirm that that is your first witness statement, just looking at that first page there?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Can we now go to MET 3053162, please? This is your statement dated the 4th of November 2019, as you can see there, and we'll call this your second witness statement. It's 34 pages long, and if we could go, please, to page 34, we will see the signature there, just above the date, 4th of November 2019. Is that your signature?
Yes, it is.
Have you read these statements recently?
Yes, I have.
Now, I've got a correction that I want to propose to you, if I may. Can we look at your second witness statement at paragraph 3 on page 1, please? MET 3053162. If you look at paragraph 3, in the third sentence there, you say, with reference to your third statement, you say, I would, however, note you say, I've had an opportunity to reread that statement, and I confirm I have no corrections to make other than the minor clarification of paragraph 63 below. Now let's look at paragraph 63. You'll find that on page 17, please. And it's a statement about defects in Reno bond. And you'll see paragraph 63. You say, prior to 14th June 2017, I was not aware of any particular defects or concerns regarding either Reno bond PE or FR. And if you look at paragraph 64, immediately below, at the very bottom of the page, if we can just be shown the very bottom of that page, you say, I would, however, note, 2 lines up from the bottom, I would, however, note that in my first witness statement, I indicated that my involvement in the Grenfell Tower project began in early 2013, and that if we go over the page, I attended a meeting with Mr. Jeff Blades, CEP, Bruce Soane's Studio E, and a representative of Leadbitter on 4th March 2013. And you then, I think, go on to correct that, saying that it was likely that your initial contact with the project was October 2012. Did you mean to say that the correction to your first witness statement was paragraph 64 and not paragraph 63?
In terms of the paragraphs, yes, it would seem it's paragraph 64, but I had altered it through to the date that thought I'd first made contact on that particular project.
Yes, thank you. Now, save for that correction, do you say that the contents of these two witness statements are true?
Yes, I do.
Have you discussed these statements or your evidence that you're going to give today with anybody before coming here today?
No, I haven't.
Now, when you were working at Arconic, I think it was known as Alcoa, is that right?
That's right.
Now, in your statements, you refer to that entity as AAPSAS. I'm going to refer to that entity as Arconic throughout the questions and answers. Is that clear to you?
Yes.
Thank you. Now, I'm going to start some questions with your role, and in that, the dates of your employment and what it involved. Am I right in thinking you started working at Arconic in October 2007?
Yes.
And you left at the end of December 2014, yes?
Yes.
But in early 2015, you joined a company, I think, called Taylor Maxwell. Is that right?
Yes.
If we look at your first witness statement, please, I'd like to go to paragraph 2. We can just have your first witness statement up, please. Paragraph 2, you say, between October 2007 and December 2014, my job title was UK Sales Manager for Alcoa Architectural Products SAS, AAP SAS, which we'll call Arconic, based in Merxheim, France. Because I was and remain resident in the UK, I was employed by Cornier UK Limited, an associated of Arconic, although I received the overwhelming majority of my instructions from and reported to personnel at Arconic. Now, you weren't directly employed by Arconic, were you?
No, I wasn't.
You were employed, I think, by the company you identified here, namely Cornier UK Limited. Is that right?
That's right, yes.
You say that that company was an associate of Arconic. Can you explain how Cornier UK Limited is or was associated with Arconic?
Cornier was part of the Alcoa group, as was Alcoa Architectural Products, which you're referring to as Arconic. So my salary was paid through Cornier and other associated HR items.
Yes, I see. When you say that Cornier was part of the Alcoa group, do you mean it was a company owned by Alcoa?
Yes.
Now, when you say, as I've just shown you, that the overwhelming majority of your instructions came from Arconic, do you mean that you had instructions from elsewhere as well?
No, just from Arconic in Merxheim.
In Merxheim. Did you ever take instructions from anywhere else?
No, only nothing at all. Only from a Cornier paid my salary, and a company car was provided, and IT equipment.
And I think you also had an email address, Alcoa email address, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Can we look at your second witness statement, please, at paragraph 11 on page 3? Second witness statement, page 3. And you say in paragraph 11, as explained in my first witness statement, I was technically employed by a company called Cornier UK Limited. I did not work with the team at Cornier, and my only colleague was Robert Campbell, who worked as a sales representative for Reno Lux, another product of Arconic. Robert and I did not work together as such, but would refer leads to one another. I did not report to anyone at Cornier, and to the best of my knowledge, no one else at Cornier had any involvement with Arconic. I received a salary for my work and did not work on a commission basis. Now, I've shown you all of that, just a number of questions which flow from it. Do I understand, am I right in thinking that your employment at Cornier was not as a normal employee? You weren't furthering the business of Cornier, as opposed to Arconic generally?
I didn't work for Cornier, no.
Right. So your role was to promote sales for Arconic, is that right? Absolutely,
yes.
And you were appointed via Cornier, basically as an arrangement within the Arconic group. Is that?
Yes, yes.
Do you know why Arconic had that arrangement with Cornier?
I don't. As I say, I had my salary received through Cornier and my IT equipment and company car. That was the only dealings I had with them.
But your formal contract of employment was with Cornier?
Yes.
Yeah. Now, who at or to whom, I should say, at Arconic did you report during your time, in general, while working for Arconic?
Latterly, it would have been Peter Froelich.
Right. And specifically from 2012 onwards, Peter Froelich?
Yes.
Yeah. And was that reporting line formalised in any way? Do you remember?
I can't remember in terms of the formalities of it.
Right. When you were working there, did you say you didn't have an office, you just worked from home and travelled to meet customers, is that right?
That's right.
Right. Where did you keep important documents that were important to your job?
They would have been either with me at the time or they would have been in my office at home.
I see. And how did you keep those documents at home?
They would have been in, if they were paper versions, they would have been in my office, in files, in my desk, and or in my work case.
Right. Did you have an Arconic laptop or computer, or was it your personal laptop or computer?
No, I didn't use my own personal equipment for any work-related duties at all.
So this was they were Arconic equipment, were they?
Yeah, they were issued through Cornea though, but they were Alcoa's Arconics, yes.
How did you usually communicate with your contacts at Arconic?
Either phone or email.
And you signed yourself on those emails, as you say, not only with an Alcoa email address, but also as a sales representative for Alcoa or Arconic latterly.
Yes, that's right.
Yes. So is it right to say that to the outside world, anyone dealing with you from the outside, you were dealing on behalf of Arconic?
That's right, yes.
Now, I want to look at the relationships within Arconic, if I can. You mentioned in your witness statement we've just seen that you worked alongside a Mr. Robert Campbell, and you say he represented Reno Lux, or was sales representative for Reno Lux. We may come to the differences between those products in a moment, but just for the moment, do I understand it correctly that you meant that you were the sales representative for Reno Bond, the product?
Yes.
And you say that you didn't work together with Robert Campbell, but you would refer leads to each other. In what circumstances would you refer a lead to Robert Campbell?
If we had a customer requesting some Renolux product, then I would refer that to him to deal with the customer. I wouldn't deal with that directly myself.
I see. And would the same work vice versa? If somebody got hold of Robert Campbell but wanted Reno Bond, he would refer the customer to you, is that right?
Yes, that's right.
And would a customer have to ask specifically for Reno Lux, or was there some other way that the customer would know that you would refer a lead to Robert Campbell?
They would generally ask for Renolux, excuse me, and they would generally ask for Renolux.
Yes, thank you. Can we look at Peter Froelich's statement, please? This is MET 3053197. And I'd like to look at page 3. It's a long paragraph about his role. And I want to look at page 3, but it starts on page 2. I don't need to go back to that. But I'd like to look with you, please, at the middle of that page. It's quite difficult to navigate, so if it could be blown up, thank you very much. Now, he says, and on the screen, it's about 7 lines down. He says, from around 2011, 2012. Can you see that?
Yes, I can.
He says, I then became responsible for all European representatives, including UK, France, and Spain. And then he lists some names. And then he lists, after Portugal, your name, Deborah French, later Vince Meekins, UK. Did you report to Peter Froelich from 2011, 2012?
Yes, I did.
He's right about those dates.
Yes.
Okay. Now, do I understand correctly that Peter Froelich was in charge of Reno Bond sales for the UK, among other countries?
Yes, he was.
Was he also in charge of Reno Lux? Do you know?
No, I don't believe he was.
What other Arconic products, if any, was Peter Froelich in charge of? Do you know?
My understanding was it was just Renobond.
Right. Am I right that Peter Froelich reported to the Director of Sales and Marketing?
That's right, yes.
Right. And who was that? Do you remember during the period 2012 to 2016?
There were two. There was Guy Scheidecker, and then after that Alan Flacon, but I'm unsure of the exact dates that they were both within their positions.
Yes, and so just the reporting line would therefore be from you up to Peter Froelich in relation to Reno bond, and from Peter Froelich either to Guy Scheidecker or Alan Flacon.
That's right.
Depending on when Alan Flacon took over from Guy Scheidecker.
Yes.
Yes. Was Peter Froelich's job focused on sales particularly?
I understand they were, yes.
Right, and I say sales, I mean sales as opposed to having a technical role or a quality assurance role of some kind.
No, it was purely sales.
Purely sales. And am I right that the director of sales and marketing, whoever it was, from time to time would report to the managing director at Merxheim?
That's right.
Right. And that was Monsieur Claude Schmidt, was it?
Yes.
Was it always Mr. Claude Schmidt?
From when I joined, yes, it was.
Right. Now, you've told us, and we see indeed in your second statement, that you were paid a salary and you didn't work on a commission basis. Who paid your salary? Was that Cornier?
Yes, it was.
And who reviewed your performance?
Peter Froelich.
Right. And was he employed by Cornier?
No, I don't believe so.
I see. Can we look at Peter Froelich's exhibit at page 23? And this is MET 3053161, please, page 23. And there's an email, which will pop up in a moment. There it is. There's an email from you to Peter Froelich dated the 6th of June, 2014. The date's in French. And it's copied to yourself. And the subject is re-projects in pipeline and action plan to achieve the forecast. And you say in the first line there, re the RB forecast. Yes, I'm working towards achieving the target and will be close to it. Now, do I understand correctly from this that you had sales targets?
Yes, I did.
Good. And were those to meet forecast sales figures?
Yes, they were.
Who set those targets? Do you remember?
Merxheim.
Merxheim. Who at Merxheim?
Peter Froelich.
Peter Froelich. And did he have, to the best of your recollection, did he have autonomy about those targets, or did he get those targets from higher up?
I'm not entirely sure. I took them straight from Peter.
Right. And how often did they come to you? How often did he give you these sales targets?
Once a year.
And what time of the year?
I can't remember, sorry.
Right. But did they run for the calendar year or for a financial year, which was different from a calendar year?
I honestly can't remember whether they were financial year or calendar year.
Did they come to you in writing? Were they a written formal set of targets?
Again, I couldn't answer that I couldn't answer that, sorry.
Right.
I can't remember.
Do you remember whether the targets worked to a calendar year end or to some other end date?
They would have been over a 12-month period, but I'm not sure whether that was calendar year or a financial year. I can't remember.
Were you expected to achieve those targets in each period or each year?
Yes, that was the aim of them, to work towards those targets.
Were those targets linked to a particular product, for example, ACM?
My targets were for Renobond.
Right. And were they linked to an amount of product or to a profit generated?
No, it would have been square meters volume.
Right. So they weren't financial targets, they were volume.
No, they were volume targets.
And when you say they were for you, that means they were volume for the UK targets?
Volume for the UK targets, yes.
Did you receive a bonus for meeting or exceeding that target in any year?
No.
Right. Was your performance review or financial benefit at all linked to whether you achieved those targets?
No, not at all.
Right. So what was the purpose of those targets as far as you were concerned?
For Alcoa to grow Renobond in the UK in terms of market growth.
Right. And was there an occasion on which you failed to meet the target you were set by Mr. Froelich for a particular period?
We sometimes met those targets, but not certainly in the early days of me joining, we weren't meeting those targets.
What were the consequences of not meeting those targets on those occasions?
There were no consequences in terms of, in that sense, none.
Can we just go back to the email we were looking at a moment ago at MET30531661, page 23, please. You list there a number of projects, and you can see the first three there that are you describe as being very close to being won or waiting for orders to be placed, and they're examples. And you say Wayland's House, 12,000 odd square meters, Swansea Towers, 11,000, Pendleton's, 35,000 square meters. And there's also, if you look a little bit lower down, Brook House, 6,500 square meters, waiting for orders to be placed. In each case, was the Reno bond you were hoping to get orders for, or had in part got orders for, standard PE?
A lot of them were, yes. I can't remember individually, but yes, a lot of them were PE.
Do you remember whether at the time you knew, in the case of each of the products I've just identified, what insulation was being used alongside the rain screen that you were selling?
No, I was not involved in any form of installation with any project.
I see. Now, you'll also see, going back to that email, that if we could just go back to that, there's a second list, just below the long list, halfway down the email, you say, projects I am still working on, but confident we will get them are Grenfell Towers, 3,000 square meters, specified RB, waiting for final colour approval, orders expected Q4. Am I right to think that you were selling to a number of big cladding projects simultaneously at any one time?
Yes, talking to various different fabricators about projects they were working on, yes.
And as we can see from the list above this, you had orders for 35,000 square meters, 12,000 square meters, and possibly 11,000 square meters. In the context of projects like that, is it right that Grenfell Tower was quite a small project with 3,000 meters?
I wouldn't say it was small. It was part of the work that I was doing on a day-to-day basis.
Right. Would you say that comparatively speaking, well, let me ask it a bit more differently. How, comparatively speaking, how important was the Grenfell Tower project to you at this time, mid-2014, for meeting your sales forecast, which applied for that period?
I couldn't possibly give an answer to that. I'm sorry. I can't remember how far off I would have been from those targets at that point.
Now, there was a team in Arconic called the Technical Sales Support Team, wasn't there?
Yes.
Yes. And am I right in thinking that Claude was the most senior person in that team?
Yes, he was.
Have I pronounced his name correctly?
Probably better than I can.
Now, that team provided technical support for sales, didn't they?
Yes, they did.
And we've understood that Claude Verlet's role would include getting technical certification relevant to each region. Is that correct?
Yes.
And was your understanding that if a region's sales would be assisted by certification of technical performance, Mr. Verlet's team would make the arrangements to obtain that certification?
Yes, they were in charge of those aspects.
And I understand that the technical sales support team could answer customer questions about products. Is that right?
That's right.
And when would you routinely refer a question to the technical sales support team?
If a customer fabricator directly asked me a question, I would then forward that to to Claude's team and ask for them for a response, or speak to them on the phone, but mostly by email. Would
you ever answer such questions yourself?
Generally not. No, not unless I'd had some information from the team first of all.
I see. What sort of questions might you be able to answer?
I could deal with simple questions like the colours, availabilities, widths of materials that we were producing. But in terms of things like, wind loads, other more technical details, then I would refer that to that team.
Is it right that Claude Werner reported to the Director of Sales and Marketing, well, at least while you were in post at Arconic?
I believe so, yes.
And does that mean that he reported to the same person as Peter Froelich?
Yes, I believe so.
Was the technical sales support team considered to be a function of marketing, so there to support sales?
They did have interaction with the marketing team to develop information that went into marketing tools.
Yes, but my question was a slightly different one. Was it function? Was the technical sales support team's function to support marketing?
I don't know. I'm not sure about specifically that question.
There was a separate technical team at Mercksheim, wasn't there, that worked on the products?
Yes.
And for example, research and development, new core recipes, etc. Is that?
That's right.
I see. So where did the technical sales support team sit between the technical team at Mercksheim on the one hand and you as the customer-facing sales representative on the other?
Generally, it all went through Claude's team, the customer sales technical team.
Right. Do you remember that there was also a team based at Mercksheim called the Inside Sales Team?
Yes, I do.
What was the nature of your dealings with the Inside Sales Team?
They would basically act as a sort of inside administrator for work that I was doing with customers in the UK, and they then did the same thing with other countries.
And when you say an inside administrator, what do you mean? What was their function?
So they would organise samples, they would deal with correspondence, they would take orders, they would process orders, liaise with customers on deliveries. If I phoned and asked for something, they would generally action it and deal with it directly with the fabricator.
I see. And am I right in thinking that your main contact within the inside sales team was Gwenfell Tower?
That's right.
Again, I'm not sure that I pronounced her name correctly. Tower. Okay.
Yes, that's right.
And is it right that if she wasn't available, you would sometimes deal with Marie-Claude Jourdan?
Yes, that's right.
Now, Grenfell Tower says that her role was largely supporting the sales activities of sales representatives. Is she right about that?
Yes, she acted as a backup for us.
And did her role involve supplying marketing literature and responding to non-technical queries?
Yes, I believe so.
And also confirming orders?
Yes.
And she says in her evidence that she was responsible for supporting Reno sales in the UK and other regions between 2013 and 2016. Is that your recollection? Is she right about that?
Yes, it is.
I want to turn to ask you about products and just clarify what products Arconic sold. First of all, Reno Bond. Now, when we talk about Reno Bond ACM, we mean a product made of 2 metal sheets with a core of a material. Is that, in general, very general terms, your understanding?
That's right.
And for ACM, is it right that the sheet is aluminium, but it could also be zinc or stainless steel or copper? There were other versions of those.
Yes, there were.
It wouldn't be ACM, it might be ZCM.
That's right.
Now, you explain in your statements, and there's no need to go to them, that there are various options for Reno Bond, and I'll summarise them and see if we can agree. Is it right some ACM was used for signage and internal linings?
That's right.
And there was a product called Reno Bond 22, made up of 2 0.2 millimetre thick aluminium sheets bonded on either side of a core. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes. And then Reno Bond 33, which had 0.3 millimetre thick aluminium sheets bonded to a core.
That's right.
That's right. Now, is it right that neither of those products, Reno Bond 22 or Reno Bond 33, were used for use on the external part of a building?
No, they weren't used for any form of architectural application.
Right. And then when you say architectural application, you mean rain screen?
Yes.
Right. They were for signage or internal linings, weren't they? Or perhaps corporate identity?
Yes, that's right.
Yes. Now, in your second statement, I think you say you didn't sell those products ever. Is that correct?
Yes, I didn't sell those directly. There were other people doing that.
No, no. Did you represent those products and not sell them, or was it just not your? They just weren't in your the ambit of your role.
No, I just didn't get involved with them. I would hand them over to other people to deal with.
Right. So you were really involved in Reno bond for architectural purposes.
Yes.
I see. So from now on, having clarified that, when I talk about Reno bond, I'm going to mean the architectural product, unless I say otherwise or you correct me.
Okay.
Now, Reno bond for architectural use, is this right? It was referred to as Reno bond or RB 55.
Yes.
And am I right? That was made up of two 0.5mm thick aluminium sheets bonded to a core.
Yes.
And the total thickness of Reno bond 55 was variable. Am I right? It came in 3mm, 4mm, and 5mm. Sorry, 6mm cores.
Yes.
Including the core. Now you say in your evidence that the standard thickness for external use on buildings was 4mm, including both sheets and the core.
Yes.
And the way that was recorded internally was RB 55-4.
That's right.
So if the panel, our panel here, sees the expression RB 55-4 in any document, am I right that that means Reno bond ACM with a 0.5mm thick aluminium skin and an overall thickness, including the core, of 4mm?
Yes.
Now, as I understand it, is this right? There may have been a difference in the choices of coating. Various documents that we've seen suggest that there were two kinds of coating, PVDF on the one hand and Duragloss 5000 on the other. Is that right?
Yes.
And is it right that PVDF stands for polyvinylidene fluoride? Or do you not? Is that you would have to look up as I did?
You know, I wouldn't. Yes, I wouldn't be able to confirm that.
Right. Is it do you know whether it was a membrane or came in membrane form?
No, I believe it was paint.
It was paint. Would it be possible for customers to order Reno bond in either coating, either PVDF or Duragloss 5000?
Yes, they could.
They could. Now, turning to the cores available for Reno bond, is it right a customer could either get a PE core or an FR core?
That's right.
Core. And as I understand it, the PE core was 100% thermoplastic, whereas FR was 70% mineral and 30% plastic. Is that right?
Yes, I believe so.
And would you refer to the PE core as standard?
Yes.
And FR stood for fire retardant.
Yes.
That's right. Can we look at your second witness statement, please, page 7? That's MET 3053162, page 7. And I'd like to look with you, if I can, please, at paragraph 27. Now, we may come back to this paragraph later, but just for now, I want to look at the last two sentences. You say there, since my departure from Arconic, I understand that it has introduced into its range a third core type, A2. There may have been versions of an A2 Reno bond product available towards the end of my time at Arconic, but I never sold it. Now, A2 core, is this right, is 90% mineral wool and 10% plastic?
I'm not sure of what the core was made up of. I just knew that they were looking at a different variety.
Right. Maybe that's something we need to pursue with Mr. Schmitz, since that's something he appears to have said in his statement, paragraph 17, but you can't confirm that.
No, I can't, sorry.
We may come back to A2 core later to see what further help you can give on that. Can I then turn to zinc? There was also a product which had a zinc skin, but and a composite with a composite core. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Did you refer to that as ZCM?
Yes.
Composite material. Can we look at Claude Schmitz Exhibit 10, please? And go to, this is at MET 3053157, page 319. And it's a document you may or may not have seen before, but let me show it to you. It's a technical data sheet for zinc composite panel. And if we just look at that page, Ms. French, can you confirm that this is a document you've seen before or you're familiar with?
Yes, I am.
Can we go please to page 320? And at the very bottom, up the side, and I'm afraid this is the case with quite a lot of Arconic documents, right at the very bottom next to Alcoa Architectural Products, you'll see a date in vertical, do you see? And it says 08-2014.
Yes.
Yes. So can we confidently date this document to August 2014, do you think?
I wouldn't be able to say either way if that's what it's saying on there.
Right. But from your experience of dealing with documents such as this, where we see a date like that, can we be confident that that's the date it was produced?
I would say so, yes.
Right. Now, if we go back to page 319, please, you can see under main features, underneath the 6 colours at the top, if we could blow up the paragraph that says main features, it says 2 pre-weathered zinc skins bonded to a thermoplastic fire retardant core material. And then under application, you see it says that it's a composite material. And underneath that, a little bit to the right, you can see that there's an exploded version of, or pic diagram of the material itself with a pre-weathered pair of zinc sheets on the exterior with an FR core in the middle. You see that?
Yes.
Now, you say in your statement that stainless steel, copper and zinc had to be supplied only with FR core. Is that right?
Yes, that's my understanding.
Is that confirmed by this data sheet?
Yes.
And now, before this data sheet, before 2014, was that also the case? Namely, that ZCM only ever came with FR core?
Yes.
I see. Do you know why ZCM, zinc composite material, could only be supplied with an FR core?
I don't know.
Did you ever ask?
I possibly did. I can't remember whether I did or not.
Did you ever wonder to yourself why it was that ACM could come with a fully PE core without any fire retardancy in it, but ZCM only ever came with an FR core? Did you ever wonder about that?
To be honest with you, it would be down to some of the technical teams to decide those items.
Can we go to your first witness statement, please, at page 2? And I'd like to look in that with you at paragraph 7. And you say there, just wait for it to come up. In paragraph 7, towards the bottom of the page, you say, by the time I was discussing the Grenfell project, there was an established trend that architects or designers of buildings were increasingly looking for exterior material that had a natural look, and therefore natural materials such as ZCM and SSCM, mentioned in paragraph 3 above, became much more in demand. I understood that Arconic sourced its supplies of zinc for its RB Reno ZCM from Unicor building products. Although Unicor had its own natural material range, which it marketed as solid zinc panel, Arconic's Reno ACM range included zinc appearance or finish, typically described as a zinc patina ACM. However, as a result of the arrangements agreed between Arconic and Unicor, if I received an inquiry for any zinc finish or a finish having the appearance of zinc, I was required to promote the RB ZCM product and not the zinc patina ACM. Now, I've read that all to you. Some questions follow. Was the Reno zinc patina in fact an aluminium product finished to look like zinc?
The ZCM was a natural zinc skin, and then there was an ACM, which was an aluminium skin painted to look like zinc.
Right. Is it right that you were instructed to promote ZCM, i.e. real zinc, if a zinc or zinc look was requested?
Yes.
So does it follow, is this right, that if ZCM was chosen, then the fabric would have to have an FR core?
Yes, if it was ZCM.
Yes, if it was ZCM.
Yeah.
Yes. But if zinc patina ACM was chosen, then the fabric could have either an FR core or a PE core. Is that right?
Right. Yes.
Yes. Or even, I suppose, an A2 core once it became available later.
That would have been for them to decide at the time.
Yes. Now, in what circumstances do you remember would your customers be offered the choice between ZCM, which would come with an FR core, or zinc patina ACM, which could come with either?
As I say, I wasn't allowed, after the deal had been done with Umicore, I wasn't allowed to actively promote the ACM zinc lookalike. So the majority of what we were offering was ZCM.
But only where the customer asked for real zinc.
Yes, if they wanted a zinc lookalike, I would have to offer the natural zinc.
Right. I see.
That would have been the only thing that they would have been able to have.
In what circumstances would zinc patina ACM then get to be sold?
It was sold early when I first joined, we were selling it. And then once the development of natural zinc and the arrangement with Umicore had been done, then we were actively discouraged in selling the ACM zinc lookalike.
When you were selling zinc lookalike ACM, would the customers usually be offered a choice between FR and PE cores?
It would have been a standard core, and that's in the way that they would have ordered any other Renobond ACM.
Do you remember when the arrangement with Umicore was entered into, so that if a customer asked for zinc lookalike, you would have to sell them, or zinc look, you would have to sell them zinc as opposed to patina?
I couldn't answer that absolutely with clarity. I couldn't answer exactly when that change was made, but it would have been likely couple of years into my time with Merckstein, but I honestly couldn't answer that. I can't remember. Right.
I see. So long before your involvement in the Grenfell Tower project, then?
Again, I honestly can't remember. I want to answer these questions, but I can't. I honestly couldn't answer that with proper clarity.
Okay. Well, we'll come back to the zinc question later on. Could Reno Lux be coated in the zinc patina colour?
I believe so.
So is it right? Could Reno Lux be sold as a zinc look product that had no core?
Yes, I believe so. Yes.
Yes. So if somebody said, "I want a panel with a zinc look," would you then tell Robert Campbell that somebody had asked for something that he might be able to supply, namely Reno Lux?
If it was necessary, if it was relevant for what they wanted to do with it, then yes, I would.
Right. And could Reno Lux be used as a rain screen panel?
Not very often. It generally wasn't thick enough. There were occasions it was done in that thickness, but it's not very often.
Right. And why is that?
I believe it's not thick enough for what they need to do with the panels.
Right. So I'm so sorry.
But that's not an area that would automatically go to other people who are designing the external facades, but I don't know.
So now I want to look at the next question, which is fabrication. Can we look at your second witness statement, please, at page 8? And I'd like to go to paragraph 29. And also 30, in fact. Now, these are two quite long paragraphs, so I'd like just to read them out so that everybody can see and hear what you're saying. You say, at 29, it's important to note that Renobond was supplied as flat sheets of raw material. Alone, it serves no purpose, and it must be cut and or fabricated by specialist fabricators and then combined with many other components in order to have any utility. Arconic's customers were either specialist fabricators who would cut and fabricate the Renobond, or installers who would have the Renobond fabricated and then they use it as part of a rain screen cladding system. And then you say in paragraph 30, for the purpose of facades, Renobond was most often used by customers to create either rivet or cassette rain screen cladding systems For a rivet system, the Reno bond sheets would be cut to the appropriate size by a fabricator and then screwed flat into the rain screen cladding system. With a cassette system, the Reno bond would be formed by a fabricator into hollow cassettes that would hang from the face of the rain screen cladding system. The cassette system would be more expensive for the end user because it required more work on the part of a fabricator. However, how the Reno bond was to be used by a fabricator was not relevant to Arconic in terms of pricing or sale, because Arconic simply supplied sheets of Reno bond product. It did not specify, manufacture or sell rivet or cassette rain screen cladding systems. Now, you say there that, among other things, that Arconic only sells the flat material, which must then be fabricated by a fabricator. For example, CEP. And I'm right, CEP is an example of such a fabricator.
Yes.
And you say the mode of fixing, rivet or cassette, isn't relevant to the pricing of Reno bond. Can we go to Claude Verla's statement, please, at page 7? And I want to look with you at what he says in paragraph 26. I'm sorry, it's MET 53190 at page 7. MET 53190, page 7, paragraph 26. And just 5 lines up from the bottom of that paragraph, he says, during my time at Arconic, and speaking in general terms based on my limited understanding of how customers fabricate the product, the proportion of cassettes to rivet-type products has diminished substantially in Europe. In the UK, I understand that architects and planners had a preference for cassettes on visual amenity grounds for higher value projects. Do you agree with Claude Verla there that the UK preferred cassette fix ACM because it was, I'm summarising, aesthetically pleasing, more aesthetically pleasing?
I would say the work that we were doing, as in Alcoa, Arconic in the UK, was more cassette than rivet.
So that was your experience, that,
Yes.
that architects and planners had a preference for cassettes on aesthetic grounds?
Yes.
Now, even though you've said it isn't relevant for pricing purposes, is it fair to say that you would generally know how the fixing was proposed for the projects in respect of which you were selling Reno bond?
Not in all cases, no. That would have been down to the fabricator, and the cladding installer would have had a lot of that detail.
Right. You say not in all cases. I'm suggesting to you that in general, in the general run of cases, you would know. Is that wrong?
Yes.
So you would?
Yes, in general. Yes, sometimes I would know that if it was cassette, but not in all cases, no.
Understand. Now, in the case of the supply to Grenfell Tower, to that project, you in fact had quite a lot of knowledge about what fixing would be used, didn't you?
Yes.
Yes, and we'll come to look at that in detail later on in your evidence. Can I then turn to your background and training? I want to ask you first about your work history. And you say at paragraph 6 of your second statement on page 2, second statement, page 2, paragraph 6, please. You say, prior to commencing work at Arconic, I worked for a small metal distribution company, NB Metals Limited, based in Welwyn Garden City, as a sales representative selling aluminium extrusions to engineering companies and steel tool businesses. It was in this role for approximately 2 years, between 2005 and 2007. Prior to this, I worked for 6 months at Franklin Covey, selling management and leadership training packages. Before that, I worked for ThyssenKrupp for approximately 8 years, again selling aluminium extrusions. My first job after leaving school in 1983 was working for Allcan, initially as an administrative assistant, but later as a sales representative, selling aluminium extrusions and sheets to engineers and fabricators. I do not have any formal relevant qualifications in relation to the role I had at Arconic, and was not required by Arconic to obtain any such qualifications. So, in chronological order, see if we can summarize that. You left school and worked for Allcan, and then became a sales representative selling aluminium extrusions and sheets. Yes?
That's right.
And then you worked for ThyssenKrupp, Franklin Covey, and then at Welwyn Garden City. in each case in sales.
Yes.
So is it right that you've been in sales for practically your entire career?
Yes.
Yes. And say for a few months, I think, which you identify, you, I think, have always worked selling aluminium products to the construction industry.
That's right.
Yes. Now, you say you've got no formal
No,
qualification.
not to the construction industry. I've sold aluminium products, but not to the construction industry.
To whom would you sell them?
They were to general engineers and to tool steel companies.
Right.
So just general engineers making widgets and bits and pieces like that, and tool steel companies.
Okay. Now, would you agree that when you joined Arconic in 2007, you had extensive experience in that industry, the industries you've just identified, selling aluminium products?
In those industries, yes.
Yes. And given that you were selling or had sold aluminium products for many years before joining Arconic, did you have any familiarity with fabricators?
Not the fabricators that I was working with then. No, completely different.
I see. What about familiarity with designers working in the construction industry? Did you have any experience with that? You didn't?
None whatsoever.
When you arrived, well, let me show you your statement. Paragraph 7 of your second witness statement on page 2, please. I just want to ask you about what happened when you arrived at Arconic. You say in paragraph 7, my role at Arconic was the first time that I'd worked with rain screen cladding facades. There was a short period of crossover with my predecessor in the role, Colin Southgate, but he had effectively retired by the time I started. I received some contact details and customer files from Colin, but nothing else. Shortly after starting with Arconic, I spent a week at Arconic's site in Merxheim, France, where I met various people and learnt about the products produced by Arconic. Now, do I understand correctly from this that you didn't, in fact, have a handover from Colin Southgate?
No, I didn't.
Did he give you any information about the products that you were to represent?
No, I didn't get any.
Did he give you any information about the literature that you could use to promote the products that you were to represent?
I didn't have any literature from him, just some customer files.
Did you have a conversation with him about the fire safety of the products that you were to represent?
No, nothing.
Any discussion about fire classification in relation to?
No, nothing.
When you arrived, did anybody ever give you a technical introduction to the products that you were to sell?
I had an overview of the products, but I wouldn't say that I had an in-depth technical overview, no.
Right. Well, let's look at your second statement, please, at page 4. You deal with the induction that you experienced when you started at Arconic. It's at page 4, paragraph 15, please. And this is under the heading Training on Reno Bond Products. You say, when I started at Arconic, I attended an induction in Merxheim, which included training on every aspect of sales at Arconic. This included understanding how the products were manufactured, in which colours, finishes and types the products could be made available, how the sales process worked, what marketing materials were available, and so on. On the technical side, I believe that Claude Verlet explained what the Reno Bond product was and how it might be used by customers. This is likely to have included a section on the technical aspects of the products and certifications, but I do not remember the details. At some point during my employment, Claude explained that customers in the UK might be interested in receiving a copy of the certificate issued by the British Board of Agrément, BBA, relating to the Reno Bond product. I do not remember when this was. As far as I can recall, this was the first time that I had ever heard of the BBA or the certificates that it issues. In any event, the BBA certificate was the only document that most of Arconic's customers in the UK ever specifically asked for. Now, you started working, as you told us, I think, for Arconic in October 2007. How soon after you started did you go to Merxheim for the week of training you've identified?
It was within the first 4 to 6 weeks.
And do I understand from paragraph 15 that I've just read to you that there was a strong focus on sales in that training session?
Yes, there was.
Did Claude Verlet explain the BBA certificate for Reno PE 55?
I don't remember specifically what was covered in that training.
Right. I mean, to be fair to you, the BBA certificate at the time was in the process of being drafted in the last quarter of 2007. Do you remember any discussion at that time, either at this sales induction meeting or later, about the process or about creating the BBA certificate?
I honestly can't remember. It's such a long time ago.
Did he mention the BBA certificate at all during the training session?
I honestly can't remember.
Now let's look and see what he says about the training. Can we look at his witness statement? That's MET 3053190, please. At paragraph 124 on page 36. He says, I've been also asked to confirm whether Arconic provides training to its staff and contractors in relation to the technical performance of its products, including in respect of fire performance. In relation to Arconic employees and external sales teams, this training occurs in different forms, but includes information on technical matters being provided to relevant employees as part of their onboarding process. This is usually at least a half-day session, and the content will depend upon the particular role of the employee. For example, if they were responsible for sales into France, there may be a greater focus on French-related technical certifications. Now, do you agree with what he said there?
Yes, the bones of what he's saying, yes.
Now, you told us that you had no previous background when you joined Arconic with cladding rain screen systems. That's right, isn't it?
That's right.
Were you given any additional support to fill the gaps in your knowledge and experience?
No.
So you had to work, you had to educate yourself on the job, as it were. Is that fair?
Yes, it was.
Did anybody give you a focus on UK-related technical certifications?
I don't remember any specifics on UK regulations. Right.
You say you don't remember any. Do you mean you don't?
I don't remember receiving any.
Right. Can we go back to Claude Schmitz witness statement, paragraph 17? I'm so sorry, paragraph 52 at page 17 then. Just want to put what he says at paragraph 52, page 17, that same document, in the light of your answer just now. At page 17, paragraph 52, he says, and I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, that's, I mean Claude Schmitz witness statement. I'm in the wrong statement, it's my fault. I'd like to go to MET 3053187, please. Page 17, paragraph 52. He says there, training would also be provided for new sales team members. This would be carried out by Claude Verler, his team, and they would spend time explaining the fire certifications held and what would need to be provided to sell product in the particular country, in a particular country. Do you agree that you had some training on what fire performance was required to sell Reno Bond into the UK market?
I remember having training on the product, but I don't specifically remember receiving fire training on it, no.
Right, so when Mr. Schmidt says that Claude Verler's team would spend time explaining the fire certifications held and what would need to be provided to sell the product in the UK, you didn't get any training on fire certifications?
I don't remember having any specific training for the UK.
Right. Can we then turn to what you did know about selling to the UK market? And I want to ask you about your understanding of the product and sales to the UK. And I'll start, I think, with PE sales into the UK. Is it right that at some point, quite early on, you came to learn that for Reno Bond 55, there were different cores available, PE and FR?
Yes.
And specifically, did you understand that the difference between PE and FR was to do with fire performance?
Yes, I did.
Can we go back to your second witness statement? Page 7, please. I'd like to look at paragraph 27. And 4 lines down in paragraph 27, you say, unless a customer specifically requested an FR core, then I would price a job on the basis of PE, which was at the time the standard version of ACM panels requested by customers in the UK market. And if we go over the page to paragraph 32, you continue on the same theme. At the bottom of the page, you say, during my time at Arconic, it was rare for a customer in the UK to order Reno Bond FR. Indeed, I cannot remember the specific occasion on which I sold FR, although I cannot say for certain that it never happened. In other markets, such as Germany, I understood from Arconic sales representatives in the German market that it was much more usual for customers to order FR. I do not know the reason for this, but I assume it related to the respective regulatory regimes. Now, just pausing there, I'm going to come back to the rest of that paragraph in a moment, if I may, but just pausing there, can we just look and see what others at Arconic have to say about selling PE into the UK market, to see if you agree? Can we start with Claude Verler's statement, MET 30's 53190, please, at paragraph 29, page 8. He says there on page 8, paragraph 29, in the 3rd line, he says, I was not aware before the Grenfell Tower fire that the UK remained as a predominantly PE market up to and including 2017. I had no specific knowledge of the UK market, he says. Now, can we look at Claude Schmitz' statement, which we've just been looking at, MET 30's 53187. This is his second statement, paragraph 36 on page 13. I'm going to show you what each of these witnesses say about the UK market. This is Claude Schmidt, page 13, paragraph 36. He says, the figures referred to above, which are sales figures, are for sales of Reno Bond PE, as in that period, that was what the UK market demanded. So he says that. Then if we go to Peter Froelich's statement, MET 30's 53197, page 9, paragraph 34, he says, at the bottom of that paragraph, at that time of the Grenfell Tower project, based on my experience and market knowledge, I believe that the UK was generally a PE market in that most projects requested PE. So that's what Peter Froelich says. And then if we finally look at what Gwenelle Derandanger says, we can go to her statement, MET 30's 53191, please, page 4. I want just to show you what she says at paragraph 17. She says there, Reno Bond with a PE core was ordered by and supplied to CEP for the Grenfell Tower refurbishment. This was typical, she says, this was typical for projects in the UK at the time. The UK was predominantly PE market, and it was rare for a customer in the UK to order Reno Bond with an FR core. I do not remember ever specifically being told this. It was just always the case based on my experience. I was not in a position to challenge this for any particular project, as I did not have any knowledge of the regulatory regime in the UK. Other countries such as Germany were predominantly FR markets. And then if we can go to page 9, please, paragraph 30.2, she says there, halfway down the paragraph, the system does not provide a default product specification, and they are input by the relevant sales representative. For the UK, a primarily PE market, unless FR had been requested by the customer, then any quotation would be produced using the price for a PE core. All of the product specifications, including the core type, were apparent on the face of the quotation sent to the customer. Now, I've shown you all of that, and it's quite a lot just to keep in one's head at the same time, but it looks as if, with the exception of Claude Verler, there was widespread understanding within Arconic that the UK was a PE market. Was that your understanding?
Yes, that is my understanding.
And is it correct that Claude Verlet didn't know, as he maintains, as we've showed you, that the UK market was a predominantly PE market until the fire at Grenfell in 2017?
It's difficult for me to answer that question. I don't know what he would have known or not known, but I would say that predominantly it was PE.
Are you able to explain Mr. Verlet's professed ignorance of that fact?
I honestly can't begin to even describe, explain that. No.
No. And given where he sat in the reporting chain, can you think of any reason why he wouldn't have known, as everybody else is saying, that the UK was predominantly a PE market?
I honestly can't. I really can't help on that one.
Do we understand it from what I've shown you that you would automatically sell PE cord ACM unless you were asked specifically for an FR core?
That's right.
Generally, did customers specifically ask for a PE core, which is what Mr. Froelich seems to suggest at paragraph 34 I've shown you, or were they mostly silent about the core and you would assume that they meant PE core unless they asked otherwise?
It was they never generally requested a PE or an FR core. It was just the market just ordered PE core. The discussions never came up about requiring anything other than a PE core.
So do we take it from that answer that they didn't say anything about the core and you would, by default, sell them PE?
That's right, yes.
Do you know why the UK was predominantly, as people say, or generally, as people say, a PE market?
I don't. Looking back now, I don't know why it was predominantly a PE, predominantly PE.
Right.
Other countries were predominantly PE as well, and others weren't. So no, I don't.
What other countries do you recall were predominantly PE as well?
France took, from what I can understand, took a lot of PE, as did the UAE. They were predominantly PE as well.
Right. Now, looking a little bit more closely at this question, we saw in your statement at paragraph 32 that you said that you thought this was something to do with the regulatory regime in the UK that permitted PE to be sold here, but not the regime in Germany, for example. Is that a fair summary of your evidence?
Yes, that was my understanding.
Did you know what it was about the UK regulator that explained PE's popularity in the UK, but not in Germany?
No, I just felt it was from discussions and meetings at sales meetings in Merksheim, it was the German market was tighter in terms of their regulations than other places.
Right. So you knew it was something to do with regulation. Did you ever ask what it was about regulation that meant that the UK was a predominantly PE market?
No, not specifically.
Was it ever explained to you in any more detail than that?
No.
Now, you told us that you understood that the difference between PE core and FR core was to do with fire performance. And if FR was fire retardant, as it stands for, did you understand that it was safer from a fire safety perspective?
At the time, I wouldn't have known that. No, I mean, I do now. I do to a degree now, but I wouldn't have done at the time. No.
Did you understand that where it was more usual for customers to order FR, such as in Germany, as you've identified, that was because the regulatory regime was tighter there as regards fire safety?
Yeah, as I say, I just took it that they got tighter restrictions there, and therefore they had to do something different.
And just to slightly repeat a question I put to you a moment ago, did you ever question either to yourself or with anybody within Arconic the extent to which these regimes differed so as to explain the popularity of PE in the UK, but not in Germany?
No, I didn't. No, never needed to do that.
Did anybody ever tell you why they thought that the UK was a PE market?
No, not that I recall, no.
In what respect did you understand that restrictions in Germany, for example, were tighter than restrictions in the UK?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
In what respect did you understand that restrictions in Germany, for example, were tighter than restrictions in the UK?
There was nothing specific in terms of a single item. It was just during sales meetings that I know my colleagues over in Germany were struggling to sell Reno because they didn't have the A2, for example. So they got FR, but they couldn't even sell that because of the regulations in Germany.
Right.
But other than that, I didn't really question it.
Do you know what was the advantage of PE where FR was available?
In terms of why it was always being ordered in the UK, there were one or two things that fabricators mentioned at the time about it being easier to fabricate, but that was the only discussions. There was very little discussions about the differences in cores and why one would be ordered and not the other.
I'm just wondering why Arconic sold PE at all when it could sell FR, which was by definition safer from a fire safety perspective.
That's not a question that I asked. It's not something that I would have been involved in those discussions. That would have been for Merksheim.
Right. Did you ever wonder or ask anybody why it was that not all customers ordered FR if it was safer, regardless of the respective regulatory regimes?
I can't remember specifically, but I possibly had conversations. I know, as I say, I know that certain fabricators from various countries preferred the PE because it was easier to fabricate than an FR core.
When you say easier to fabricate, can you expand? In what way easier to fabricate?
It was quicker. It wasn't so difficult, but that's just general comments that's not my own experience of that. It's just comments from other fabricators that I've heard of.
And presumably, is this right that the ease or difficulty of fabrication as between PE and FR would apply whether one was in Germany or Spain or the UK?
That's right.
So that can't explain, can it, why the UK was a predominantly PE market?
I can't answer that. I can just say that that's some of the questions that's some of the responses we were getting from fabricators, but I believe that was from other places, not just the UK.
Excuse me, Mr. Millett. Ms. French, just help me with this. Can you remember whether there was a significant price difference between PE and FR cores?
There was a price difference between FR and PE, but whether I could term it as significant, but there was definitely a difference between the two.
Can you recall in percentage terms roughly what it was?
Not in percentage terms, but I would say somewhere around about €4-5 a square metre difference per square metre.
And when you heard that it might affect the ease of fabrication, did anyone indicate that might affect the cost of fabrication?
No, that wasn't suggested.
Right. Yes, thank you very much.
We'll come to some of the price differentials later on in your evidence. But can I just focus for a moment on the regulatory regime? We asked Mr. Blades, Jeff Blades, of CEP, about why it was that about why PE core ACM was even offered for use over 18 meters where FR was available. And I'm not going to take you to his evidence. That's day 41, page 44, lines 22 to 45 at line 10. My question is, can you answer that question? Why it is that PE core ACM was offered for use at height, in other words, over 18 meters, where FR is available?
That would have been down to the other people within the chain of the construction. that's not, we provided a BBA certificate. I provided all the information that was needed. It would have been for other people to decide whether that was a suitable product.
Right. But to pick up on the chairman's question, was the driver here in the choice price-based?
I can't. All I can say is that there was a difference between FR and PE. I couldn't say whether that's what was driving that particular decision on any specific project.
Thank you. Now, as I say, we'll come back to look at some of the economics later on. Can I just then ask you about Class 0 or Class O, as I think some people refer to it? Can we look, please, first at ARC 50626? Now, what will appear on the screen is a piece of product literature from 2005. And I'm putting that to you because if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, on page 1 there, you'll see a date in the bottom left-hand corner, status 0105. Just going back to the top of the document, my first question is this a document you recognise, given that it predated your, you do?
Yeah.
Yes. Is it a document that you would have used in your function at Arconic in the early days of your time there?
Yes, I would have done.
And you can see that it's product information about Reno bond. And you can see on page 1, under the description, it says that it's a composite, Reno bond is a composite panel consisting of 2 coil-coated aluminium sheet permanently bonded to an extruded thermoplastic compound core material. See that?
Yeah.
And it goes on below that to say that it's available in PE and FR. But just on the initial description in the first paragraph there, there's no reference there to the fact that Reno bond comes in a rivet and a cassette fixing variant, is there?
No.
Do you know why that is?
No, I don't.
If we go to page 3, in the column on the right-hand side, there's a column which says fire tests. It has a heading, fire tests. And if we could have that just expanded a little bit, please, you'll see that it says Great Britain, Reno bond PE, BS 476 unframed panels, BS 476 Part 6 Class 0, BS 476 Part 7 Class 1. And then Reno bond FR, BS 476 Part 6 Classified, BS 476 Part 7 Class 1. Now, you were familiar with this document, as you've told us. Is it a document that you provided to customers?
I believe I had done on some occasions, yes.
On what occasions do you remember you would customarily provide them to customers?
If somebody had asked for general product information on Reno bond, then there was generally information that I would have sent them.
You can see, if we just go back to it, that it only presents national classes. And you can see you've got the Great Britain classes there for both PE and FR and the British standards. And under France, you've got Reno bond PE classified M1, Germany PE normal inflammable B2, etc. Do you know, well, was there a document that you also had that presented Euro classes, the European classifications?
There were documents that were European documents, yes.
Is that so at the time you were using this document?
Sorry, just explain that. Explain what you're asking me again.
Yes, I will. I'll put it slightly differently. When customers asked you a question which meant that you gave them this document showing the national classes, did you also offer them a document showing them European classes?
I wouldn't have normally, unless they'd specifically asked me for the European documents.
If you go to page 4, you'll see that this document also refers to two sets of French, this is the middle of the page on the left-hand side, under other certifications, two sets of French tests for Reno cassette system, Avis Technique, and from CSTB, and then for Reno riveted system, also Avis Technique. You see those two tests. Did you know that those variants, cassette and riveted, were the subject of different Eurofire testing in 2005?
At the time, no, I wouldn't have done.
Right. Do you know why this document didn't mention that fact?
No, I don't.
Now, before I ask you a little bit more about that, which I will be, I want to show you another document. Can we go to CLG 60224?
Mr. Millett, are we about to go to a different subject?
Well, I was just looking at the clock. I think, in fact, we probably are. It's as good a time as any to stop for lunch.
Yes.
Probably doesn't much matter whether I ask this question before lunch or after lunch.
Well, perhaps you could ask it after lunch in that case. Ms. French, we would normally break now so that everyone can get some lunch. I'm sure you'd like to get some lunch as well. So we'll do that. Please remember not to talk to anyone about your evidence or anything related to it. And we will resume, please, at 2 o'clock. All right?
Thank you, sir.
Good. Thank you very much.